Good morning. You're listening to FloorDaily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. I'm at the StarNet meeting in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm with Pete Larmore, the president and CEO of Bonitz. Pete, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Kemp. Thanks for having me today.
I'm glad to run into you because we just ran the news last week that you're announcing your retirement at the end of the year. And Ron Lutwiller is going to take that role, right?
Yeah, Ron will step up as president, and this process, Kemp, has been going on for almost 2.5 years. I informed the board 2.5 years ago that I thought that the end of 23 would be the right timing for me. They went on a nationwide search, and I'm very excited about the fact that they've ended up with the candidate that I had internally that I hired 3 years ago.
Okay, so he's coming from inside.
He is. He's been with us 3 years, and it's interesting because Bonitz in the past traditionally has not really hired from outside the industry in any of our promotions. But 2 years ago, I hired a CFO, and then Ron is a senior vice president of operations with the idea that one of those two could succeed me, and it's worked out very well for Ron. He came from the dock and door business, so it isn't as if he's not been in construction, but it's been a unique experience for him to learn the ceiling and flooring business and the other products we're in over the last 3 years. But he's done a great job getting ready for that.
Just for those people who don't know Bonitz and the scope of Bonitz, top 5 StarNet member. After Diversify, you're probably next in line as far as total revenue.
Yeah, I would guess so. That's probably the case. You know, we've always, prior to Diversified acquiring, we were always recognized as the largest, and I would say we're probably the second largest right now in flooring.
And you're not just flooring, you do ceilings and drywall as well, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've exited us largely out of the drywall business because it's so labor-driven and so commodity-driven, but we've added exterior cladding, and then we filled out the balance of the flooring package. So we have a Durazzo unit, and then we've got resinous floor, and we've got sports floor that we're doing now, and that business is really taking off well for us.
So background on Bonitz. Bonitz was headquartered in Columbia, South Carolina, and Harold Chapman was the lead of that. And then in transitioning with you taking over the lead role, you moved the headquarters of Bonitz to Charlotte, right?
Yeah, Kemp, and it was interesting because prior to our move to Charlotte, our executive team was spread out, and therefore there was I felt like we never gained synergy in using the collaboration that we could. So when I took over in January 2017, I announced that we would move the headquarters from Columbia. And it's interesting because I succeeded Harold. He lived in Greenville, and we didn't have any of our team in one location. And what's happened now is that our entire team, our entire executive team is located and live in Charlotte. So that allows us to get together no less than every week, and it's made a big difference in our strategic planning and driving the company forward.
Give us a little background on how you got in the flooring business and then how you ended up over at Bonitz.
You know, it's very interesting. I graduated from Virginia Tech and had accepted a job with Union Carbide, and Bhopal, India reactor melted down. It was a long, long time ago. Received a call literally just a week before. I was literally a week from graduation, 2 weeks from getting married, and I had called Milliken back, and they had offered me a job, and I called a couple different companies back that had offered me jobs, and Milliken said, "We'd love to hire you, but that manufacturing job was filled." And fortunate for me, and so much of my career has been timing and people just making things happen, they put me in sales, which I felt like I was best suited for. I spent time there, and way back, Milliken asked me to go to New York, Chicago, or LA, and they were going to groom me for leadership, and I had no desire to go to a big city, so I ended up staying in Charlotte where I lived, and I accepted a job with Bonitz, and that's now 38 years ago, and the journey that I've had is just incredible. I look at the people that have impacted me. I've had so many mentors on the way, and my success has really just been driven by the people that I've run into on this journey along the way, and without them I would have never been there. I'm humbled by where I am today in my career at this point, and all the people that I've been able to touch and the people that have really touched my life and my journey in my career.
Pete, it's interesting you tell us about this background with Milliken. That training program they had has been such a launching pad for so many successful people in the business, and it just really doesn't exist anymore, does it?
No, it doesn't. And Kemp, it's interesting because when I reflect back, that start was just incredible because I got not only business training, but As crazy as it sounds, I got etiquette training. I was taught how to dress. I was taught how to introduce myself. And it really was a launching pad. I was with a group of 27 trainees, and when I look at the success of those 27, almost all 27 became executives in the industry. So there was nothing like it, and there hasn't been since then. But it was just an incredible way to start my career, and I think it really is one of the things that allowed me to get to where I am.
Who introduced you to Bonitz?
It was interesting. They were down back in those days. Milliken had full service dealers, and I was doing special projects. I had a very unique experience, and I became an assistant to Roger Milliken's assistant. And yes, they did have Rogers had an assistant, and I was his assistant for a period of time. And I was bringing the full service dealers to the guest house, and I would take care of them, make sure that they got everything they needed at night, and more importantly, that they actually got up in the morning, the guest house, the pink Cadillacs, and then get them over. And I was working for a guy by the name of Marshall Fitzgerald at the time, and then I met Bonitz, a guy by the name of Fred Pinkston and Wayne Green. Harold was just running an operation in Greenville at that time, and I met them, and I literally was on the way back to the airport, and they said, "You need to come to work for us." And I really laughed it off. I didn't really take it seriously. And they pursued me for almost 9 months. And then what ended up happening was Milliken said, "Hey, we want you to go to one of these big cities." And as I told you, I didn't want to do that. So I ended up accepting the job with Bonitz. I thought it would be a 1 or 2 year stint. And here we are 38 years later. The guy that hired me told me that I'd be the CEO of Bonitz at one time, and I didn't have the confidence in that, but he did, and I just spoke with him the other day, and he reminded me of that conversation. So I guess he was a fortune teller.
As you look back, fondest memory, biggest success, can you fill me in on that?
Yeah, really it has everything to do with people, Kemp, and some time ago this thing really turned to touching people's lives. So I think the biggest accomplishment that I've had is the people's lives that I've touched personally, that have come back and said, "Hey, you really impacted me on my journey of life." And that's what it's been all about for me for the last 10 years, really. That's been the focus.
Mm-hmm. So what's your plans here after retirement?
Well, I made a commitment 22 years ago to my wife that I would retire early enough to hike the national parks across the country. We're going to spend 3 months planning that trip. We're going to finish up a house we're building in the mountains, and then we're going to take off, I hope, for 2.5 years in an RV, and we're going to go hike all over the country. We've been very fortunate, traveled all over the world, and not really spent that much time here in the United States, and that's the goal now. And I'll be involved in something down the road. But right now, I'm looking forward to just clearing my head and resting a little bit.
Well, you look like you're in great shape, so I believe you'll be able to accomplish doing all the parks.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it. We've done a lot of hiking across, really around the world, and I'm looking to spend time here, and we're hoping that we get to do 2 or 3 nice hikes a week is the goal, as long as my health holds up.
Great. Thanks for spending time with us, Pete. Again, been talking to Pete Larmore as he prepares for retirement from Bonitz, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and ForDaily.net.